Now, do you remember when the Prime Minister accused critics of The Voice and said they were going to begin a culture war? Well, that's the standard deflection for the left whenever anyone challenges their kooky and dangerous policy agenda. And one of their senior ministers was at it again this week, and it didn't go unnoticed by our regular sleuth in the political realm, Sky News contributor Nicolle Flint. Nick, great to have you back. You've been overseas and we've missed you, but there's been a lot going on. But Tony Burke gave a state-of-the-art oration this week in which he seemed to contradict himself on several occasions. What actually happened?
Well, he didn't spend that much time talking about the arts, which is quite odd for a speech that is supposed to be about art and culture and things, Corey. What he managed to talk about a lot was many of the things that Labor are using to divide us as a nation. He made some pointed comments about the welcomed country that was provided before he gave his speech. He made some very pointed comments about Palestine, and we know that, of course, Tony Burke got himself into a fair bit of trouble in an ABC radio interview with Patricia Karvelas at the end of October, where he did not push back or condemn her suggestion that Israel's actions may have something in common with genocide. He did not refute that and was widely and rightly criticised for that. And in the same interview, he also said that he supported the flying of the Palestinian flag for the duration of the Israel-Palestinian conflict in support of Palestine. He's made very few comments in support of Israel or Jewish people. And in this speech, again, he made some comments about this concept of competitive grief, which I hadn't heard of, but I would say to Mr Burke as a senior Labor cabinet minister, what about the right of Jewish people to feel immense grief over what has happened? Because I haven't seen him make comments. He's made comments saying that there shouldn't be competitive grief for Palestinians and what's happened in Gaza, but I haven't seen him make those comments about Israel.
And what about the grief of the Jewish population here who have been attacked, who have been vocally, physically attacked and remonstrated with, who have been told not to go to the Opera House because it could be dangerous for them? I mean,
whose suburbs are being flooded with protesters, violent protesters, as we've just seen over the weekend.
It's one of these things that Labor, when they point the finger at you and say you're creating a culture war, there's three fingers pointing back at themselves because that is what they want to foster and fuel in this country.
Yes.
That's what it seems to me like.
Yes, and what was most shocking about his speech was, and he starts the speech by saying, I'll be accused of trying to have a culture war in this speech. Well, yes, you will, because that's what you're trying to do with the speech. But he had a big rant about what a horrible time he had at university and how he didn't know anyone and all of the other kids were wearing Country Road.
Oh, no, he's picked on the Country Road.
He's picked on Country Road.
The silver spoon set, that's as we used to call them. I used to be one, of course.
Did you?
I'd wear my Country
Well, you're
Road,
always very well dressed.
My pastel jumpers.
But what I find most extraordinary is a senior Labor government minister who has been in Parliament for 21 years. And Corey, did you know he has never, since 2004 when he was elected to federal parliament, he has never not been a shadow minister or an actual minister. So I don't know how you can argue that he seems to be arguing, I had an underprivileged background or I was from, the wrong side of the tracks, had a tough time at uni and yet has been so successful.
A tough time at uni because he was friendless and didn't have Country Road clothing. I mean, to harbour that sort of baggage and carry it with you for 21 years suggests that you are a troubled soul. And you need to start put it aside, get on with the job that you're doing, which is not fueling the culture wars. You've talked about his support for the Palestinian flag and his relative silence on the defence of the rights of Israelis to life and liberty. How much of a threat do you see this and what's going on in this country right now to our enduring harmony? Are we going to get over it in a short space of time, or do you think that things are more entrenched than they've ever been?
I think we're going to need to see some incredibly strong leadership, Corey, to get us over this and to reinforce our Judeo-Christian values and the values of Western civilization. And we've let this go so far in the wrong direction. I mean, all of the footage we've seen from London, the biggest ever protest, I got caught up in one when I was there. It was really scary. We have to, governments, people who love Australia, who love this nation, we have to start standing up for the values that we all believe in. And we need to see that leadership from senior government ministers, senior opposition leaders and ministers, shadow ministers. And we're certainly not going to see it from Labor, Corey. And this is what they're demonstrating.
And it's hugely challenging though, Nicolle. I've only got a minute left, but it's hugely challenging because if you do go out and you campaign for freedom like they did during the COVID lockdowns, if you go out and you campaign in favour of Judeo-Christian values or traditional marriage or any of these things, you're slammed by state-owned media, most of the mainstream media, most of the political class who are too timid to do anything about it. You're right, we need very strong leadership to pick up these cudgels and say, no, we're not going to apologise for our history, for our future, for our strengths. We're going to accept that we've got positives and negatives in this country, but we're going to focus on the positives and push forward.
Yes, exactly. But it's going to take all of us to do that in our small ways.
Is Peter Dutton the bloke to lead the Liberal Party to do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, and he has demonstrated that so thoroughly over The Voice and also in his support of Israel. He's not scared to say this behaviour is appalling and that we need to be supporting Jewish people and Israelis.
Yeah, quite right. Nicolle Flint, thank you for joining me. It's lovely to have you back in the studio, as always.